Thank you very much, and welcome to tonight's regular meeting of October 14th, 2025. Starting, Mr. Clerk, if we can call this meeting to order.
Be it resolved that this, or moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Be it resolved that this regular meeting now open at 6:01 p.m.
All in favor? Motion's carried. You can take the carried, and I'll sign them. Moving on, is there any opening remarks? So I'd like to start off by Councillor Shane is running a tad late, so he will be joining us, but we'll carry on with the meeting, and Charles can join us when he gets here. Any opening remarks from members of council? Seeing none, moving on to the adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Bajelli. Be it resolved that the agenda be approved as presented.
Any questions, comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or nature thereof? Seeing none, moving on to, just remind me when Charles gets here, just to re-input that comment. So, moving on to our delegation. So we'll be starting with our presentation from our SDNG OPP detachment. Is it, it's not constable, you're inspector or commander?
Inspector.
Inspector.
So Mayor, thank you.
Welcome Inspector Mark Hemrick from the SDNG OPP detachment.
Well,
Mark, good morning.
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I very much appreciate once again the opportunity to come to each local council and have a present on a few things, and also take questions from council about potentially, some things that might be occurring locally within the municipality where you might want to know more about, or you might want to know how the OPP might be able to assist in a greater capacity with more localized issues. So first and foremost, Mr. Mayor, is I would like to apologize. I know that the previous 3 years I had made it every year to every municipal council throughout SDNG, but last year I was away performing some other duties for the OPP, which drew me away from my regular duties as detachment commander in SDNG. So I will be doing a bit of a two-year wrap up for yourself and council. But I will also say that secondly, I would like to provide my absolute thanks to council and your staff and just the members of the North Stormont community. As I mentioned, I was away for an extended absence, working at our general headquarters in Aurelia and also commanding in another detachment within East Region. And every time I come back, I believe the saying is always, the grass always appears greener on the other side of the hill. Well, I will tell you, we've got it pretty green in SDNG. I will say that, when we talk about the support that we receive, not only from county council, from the board, from our local municipalities, from our municipal staff, county staff, we are probably, the SDNG OPP and the members are extremely lucky. And I certainly want to pass on those thanks from not only myself, but from all those members. The support we receive is just unbelievable. We are, in our customer satisfaction surveys, sometimes I doubt the results that come through to us when I see that we score in the 90s and the 95% of overall satisfaction. But when I hear and go and work in other detachments and see, how council, might operate with the detachment commander or the detachment, or hear from the public, I know we are very lucky for the support that we receive from everybody. So thank you so much for that. Certainly want to go just over a couple of priorities that we've been focusing on over the last 2 years, sort of as a whole. So first of those priorities, I just did want to certainly mention our community engagement. So over the last 2 years, I have really made it a priority for our officers to really return to those roots of community policing. And whether it be through COVID, I'm not sure where the disconnect occurred. But we got away from the days of community policing, of our police officers being able to interact with the public outside of the regular calls for service. And, you know, we do an outstanding job when it's what I call festival season over the summer, right? We are everywhere. We are interacting with members of the public. But I have really placed an emphasis on our team to really, when they are not doing those other assigned duties, proactive traffic enforcement, whatever it else may be, to really be out there in the community. You know, if they know of a hockey game or anything that's happening in the community, to really try and be out there and interact with the public in a positive light. You know, we get tremendous, and I use the Highland Games as an example where our officers walk around and bask in the sunshine and the public praise for an entire weekend. And I said, that can be year round. It doesn't have just to be during festival season. And so I've really, really put an emphasis, and we are highlighting two areas. So we are highlighting a greater emphasis with the youth and in the schools. So that includes partnering with victim services, where we are presenting to our youth who are more teenagers about two very important topics where we are seeing the need to really educate our youth. The one is about sexual consent, and the other one is about internet safety. And internet safety is not just about protecting oneself on the internet, but it's actually about, do you know what offenses can't be committed? Because everybody knows, you know, the day you get your driver's license, you know you can't drive drunk. It's obvious, right? You can't consume, you can't drive drunk. But most of our youth, did you know that you can't reshare a naked picture of one of maybe your classmates? They don't, and they don't understand. And we see these things occur, and we get called into the schools, and some of these things that are occurring, we're very fortunate that the Youth Criminal Justice Act allows us a lot of latitude on how to deal with these matters. But some of them could have very serious repercussions for a youth's future. And it is a lack of education. So we are really trying to focus on that. The other one we really want to engage with is with our seniors, with our older population, where we continue to see, you know, our seniors really be taken advantage of, especially with some of those frauds, internet-based or telephone-based. So we are really trying to educate our seniors on, you know, how to be safe and what to do, and, you know, just really, you know, hey, if it doesn't look or smell right, then, you know, there are steps that can be taken to, you know, make sure it's safe to eat. And we are really, you know, making a hard focus on that. Property crimes in the SDNG area and North Stormont, we continue to see them actually go down. So our teams have done a fantastic job. But one of the areas in the property crime world that actually we are seeing a bit of an increase is we are seeing an increase in more organized crime in our area. Particularly things like load thefts are really starting to affect the area. So if there's any commercial motor vehicle transporters in the area, we are really starting to see more sophistication and more organized crime. Where we used to see, you know, single break and enters into residences, we're seeing just a greater level of sophistication. So we are making sure to, you know, adapt and evolve our policing style behind that. Unfortunately, traffic is probably the least pleasant update I have for council and staff. It's been a deadly year, 2025. There hasn't been a single municipality, there has not been a single community that has not been affected by a fatality in SDNG. I wish I could look at council and say, I've got the magic bullet solution. I don't. Probably the biggest thing I struggle with is we continue to see the four same causal factors that are causing the fatal collisions on our roads. They are speeding, they are distracted driving, most of the time with handheld devices, they are impaired driving, and they are lack of proper safety equipment, restraints and helmets. And our efforts for enforcement are significant. And we are really, if you follow any of our social media channels, if you follow the counties, we have aggressively tried to really really work on our campaign to, try and educate the public. I'm sure, the 138 is not without. I can tell you that as for the 138, our efforts are always going to be continuing there. And we use every tool the OPP has in the toolbox to educate and to enforce on that highway. We regularly have even our aviation services down from Aurelia. For the same reason, the 138 is a challenging highway to drive on. It is a challenging highway to enforce on for the exact reasons. 2 lanes, there aren't great places for us. So if we're not consistently just driving up and down on it, there just aren't great locations for us to really sit, in a good spot and have enforcement. That being said, I certainly will say that, our efforts are always ongoing on that highway. And again, we are using every tool we have in our toolbox, and that does not exclude me. I actually drive 10 minutes out of my way each way every day to patrol up and down the 138 to make sure that we are trying to change that highway behavior. I feel horrible that it took another tragedy, especially from a well-known resident in North Stormont, to really spur the ministry to make the announcements they made, because I'm sure council knows very well, staff knows very well. There have been multiple reports of, the highway improvements that would really improve safety. I was very pleased to hear the MPP make that announcement on behalf of the ministry, and I'm hoping that those changes will come sooner rather than later, and they really do help with that. Highway safety component. Because we can't enforce our way out of the problem. I could have 10 cars on that highway 24 hours a day, and we just wouldn't be able to do it, right? It's going to take it takes a partnership to be able to do it, and some of that part of that partnership does involve some MTO and some environmental changes to that highway, which are long overdue, just based on the traffic volume and its original design. We do see we are seeing increased traffic. North Stormont, Finch Roxborough boundary road. Especially right at County Road 6, right, we're seeing a huge amount of volume of traffic using the Finch Roxborough boundary road, and we are regularly patrolling that one. I am always looking at that one, and I believe that is one of the roads based on usage, that the counties will be taking over.
Just for the context, so right now we're analyzing, we're debating on so it's not a done deal.
Okay.
So, but it is in the discussions.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Mayor. As well, County Road 13, with we continue to see Chrysler build up. With every time I drive by there, it seems like there's another residential subdivision popping up, and with that, that's another area that we are really focusing our efforts. We are also focusing our efforts. We've had an unusual amount of school bus complaints this year, so we're really focusing in a lot of high traffic areas with the school buses, making sure that people are obeying the crosswalks in the bigger built up areas, and that anywhere the school buses are dropping off, that people are obeying those lights on the school buses. Just 2 more quick things, Mr. Mayor. So our mobile crisis response team, I'm sure I've always had the support of council. It is near and dear to my heart. I might even call it my baby. So we unfortunately last year when we applied for the grant, the timelines to expand the team that were given to us by the ministry were just too short to hire, retain, and train somebody and meet the goals that we had set out in the grant application back to the ministry. So we actually declined the grant to the ministry, and for those exact reasons. We were not the only detachment in the province that chose to do so. And it was a bit of a concerted effort on behalf. It was a realistic effort, because no OPP detachment that turned it down wanted to take on the grant, and rush the process or not be able to achieve those goals. So, but we have been successful on another 2-year, which we will be increasing to 2 teams. And they will actually, part of the 2 of their very important mandates will actually, when I spoke about that community engagement, they will actually be doing education sessions with seniors about mental health as we age with our senior population. And it will include their families on, as we age and our mental health begins to decline or our cognitive skills begin to decline, what are the signs and what can our families do to support us? The other major component of that will be, we will be working with the elders in Akwesasne to better understand their traditional ways of dealing with community members that have suffered from mental health or addictions, to hopefully give us some guidance to, you know, as they say sometimes, the what's old is new, and we're hoping to get some guidance from them. At the worst, they will certainly assist us in providing some cultural sensitivity when dealing with people of Indigenous, Métis, or Inuit heritage who are suffering from those mental health or addiction-related crises. Finally, Mr. Mayor, you and the deputy, I believe, may have received an email today from Kimberly Castleman, the clerk at the counties. The 2026-2029 action plan for the OPP is due. It is now required that I consult with all the municipal councils that require policing services. So I would highly encourage you and Deputy Mayor either to meet with council or meet with the CAO and your team. It's a short, quick survey. It's only 10 questions. There are text boxes you can go right into there. And the answer I receive from the municipalities and the other groups I will be consulting with, they will help me form the action plan, which I will then be presenting to the board at the end of November for their review and final approval. But they're much like our municipal chief of police. The OPP detachment commanders under the new Community Safety Policing Act, there's much more of a consultation phase with these new plans. It's actually the first year we've ever done it, so we're a little short on time. Generally, those consultations are about 5 to 6 months long. We're trying to get them done in 60 days, so a lot of detachment commanders are really hustling. And for me, the most effective way to give people the most time was that survey. Now, I do leave the option up to, and I did put it in the survey notes, that if a municipality or their council or staff wanted to meet with me one-on-one just to go over some things they couldn't put in the free text, that was always an option. Aside from that, Mr. Mayor, Council, I am trying to stick to the time I promised you, so open to questions.
I appreciate that. We do have a tight schedule tonight, so I will, before I go to council for questions, just on the note, when you talk about the survey, does that get reported back to, it's a county level that deals with budget and so on for OPP. So are they just basically, it's a survey that they're asking the input of each 6 individual municipality to report back to counties to get to?
No, this is actually, the survey is directly from you to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it is very much, it is not back up through county council. It is directly from you to me. Every municipality that receives policing services has, I must consult with. So it's straight from you. It was just distributed through county council as an effective way to make sure it got to the intended recipients.
Thank you. So any questions from, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Inspector Hemrick, for joining us tonight. And I want to take a moment to thank you for your quick response on the 138 incident. I actually watched the police board meeting as well, and again, very quick response, very pointed response to how you are going to up your enforcement, up your activity on there. So thank you for that. That was important for our community. Also, the fact that you mentioned the Finch-Roxborough Boundary Road. Yes, we have been seeing a lot more traffic increasing there. So having your attention on there and watching that is comforting for us. The other thing I wanted to touch on, though, is I'm just wondering, based on the fact that what you're seeing in terms of the trends, whether or not there's some form of communication that our municipality can participate with you in through our website, through our Facebook channel, or something that talks a little bit about some of the items that you brought up, you know, for the kids, that type of information. How might we be able to share in the communication? Because I do know there are a lot of people who watch our website, who watch our Facebook, and some of us as counselors actively share some of the posts that go out on our Facebook. So, and we actually have our communication activity is managed by Todd, who also manages at the county level. So that keeps us all coordinated with a single messaging strategy, if you will. So I'd love to hear a little bit more on how we might be able to participate, or how staff might be able to participate in some of the communication and education piece that might go along with that.
Well, certainly, and thank you for that question, Deputy Mayor. Certainly, anytime we put anything out, we are hoping, and I know Todd does a wonderful job because I see, right, he's always on top of it. Anytime we're putting anything out through our social media channels, he will. And anytime we do have information that we would like to see posted to one of the, or that we are able to share, we will be. That is one of our goals for the future when we talk about that community engagement as well, is to share that with all of our municipal partners, because you are not the first person to ask. And, you know, so if we are, you know, providing information, you know, once again, about seniors and, you know, fraud safety, and we are providing something that we are going to be putting into an electronic format. We are also going to have a format that we would like to be able to share, whether that's a link, you know, there might be a short blurb and a link back to opp.ca where they can get additional resources, or if we are going to be doing any type of presentation, for example, on internet safety with victim services, because we will be doing something that we can compress into a video. And so we would like to see all of those things shared. And if Todd is our medium to get them to all the municipalities, then Todd will be our person that we will be using.
Further questions? Go ahead, Councilor Bugelli.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Inspector Hemrick, for joining us and for the work that you and your detachment do. I just wanted to touch quickly on the 138. I think we were all very, very pleased to hear the announcements of the plan to start rolling out some real changes infrastructure-wise to the 138, starting, which I believe is in the process right now with the RFQs going over for the next few months, where they will be looking at even some temporary measures to put in place in certain parts of the 138 while they wait for those shovels in the ground. Kind of think was 2028 is the ideal construction season to see that start. And was just wondering if there is any, knowing that we're going to have that 2-year window, the 2026 and 2027 seasons, where we're still going to be kind of working with a little bit of just kind of mitigating or hopefully a little bit of extra infrastructure to that. Is there any other plans to potentially up enforcement within that window, knowing that there is kind of a 2-season window with an end goal of a 30-year kind of conversation coming to fruition? So.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's nice. It's good that you mentioned that, because and I know through the clerk. So certainly the 2 leading collisions actually on the 138 are wildlife related, and the second one was actually at Headline Road and 138 were property damage motor vehicle collisions. So we are always working with MTO trying to identify areas where we can do how can they help us reduce some of these things. So perfect example would be north end of the 138, the open fields where MTO has started to put in regularly snow fencing. We don't get drifting snow on that section anymore. So we are looking at analyzing all of our collisions to see if there are any areas that are particular to wildlife. Because if we don't have an officer responding to a collision on the 138, then we have an officer available for patrol. Certainly the roundabout is going to help us significantly, because our officers will not be responding to as many collisions at that intersection, fingers crossed, with the roundabout. I've been through it several times myself. It's flowing very nicely, and we have yet to respond to a single collision there. So yes, so those would be 2 main factors where we're sort of looking at increasing that. We are also hopeful that some of the temporary measures might involve some areas where it would make our enforcement efforts a little bit easier. And I know we are always in constant contact with the Ministry of Transportation and their engineering department and looking at areas, are there areas where you could help us find space to make our enforcement easier?
So I will, just to keep this meeting going, so everybody, Inspector Emmerich is very accessible. I'm sure if there's any members of council that do have additional questions or want to get in contact, I believe he would be more than happy to answer what we have. As far as whether to be in the 138, the request was that we want to be part of the design. I sure hope that they will also take the OPP and the expertise that you have on that road, or the history you have on that road, to be able to help out on that factor. Also, just quickly, we do have a bit of worries on the Rox River boundary, as you mentioned. A lot of people have mentioned the County Road 9, which is often, it's the main link, I believe, from the south end of people going either Castleman or to hit the 417, is the alleyway that's been taken. So concession, or County Road 6, that intersection is a factor where we're coming in from County Road to, so it's our duty to look at what it is, if there's any kind of infrastructure we can put in, if we do go with the counties and get that, the trade-off that we're looking at is possible. But in the meantime, I think just enforcement and maybe keeping an eye out for that area is all that we can hope or expect. So if it's just to have it in the back of your mind, as you mentioned, it's something that could be just keep even though I travel that road quite a bit to go, again, it's the safety of our residents. So thank you very much, Inspector Emmerich. I will go, I think, did you have your mic on for a reason, Craig?
No, I was just going to inject when we were talking about staff trying to assist the OPP in getting their messaging out. And certainly we were, or I was copied on a recent issue in Chrysler. There was a speeding situation that occurred with one of your officers who was doing traffic enforcement near a school. And we certainly pushed it out to Todd to try and filter that to our social media platforms, just to make everybody aware of the enforcement efforts the OPP is doing, and to please be mindful and the implications or potential implications of that kind of behavior. So,
and I'm in a lot of that area, and let me tell you the message they get across, because it was brought up in discussions many times. So thank you very much, Mark. So you're welcome to stay, but I know you're busy, so if you need to go, we'll carry on with our meeting, and thank you again.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Moving along, so moving on to our second delegation, we have Mr. Frank Bueller and Ray Chung that will bring us in regards to Evans Supply Limited and our water meters. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff, for allowing the time for us to come here and talk about universal water metering. Not sure how we're going to advance the slide if you want to. Okay. Maybe you can see it from over there. I'm going to advance it over here. Good. So as I understand it, North Stormont does not have meters. What we're going to cover today is just give you an overview of what is happening in Canada, some facts, and then we'll talk about the metering technology that people are putting in place today, how you put it all together, and what really you will get out of putting in a metering system. So if we look across Canada, in your packages or up in the presentation slide, it's not a surprise that not every province is fully 100% metered. A big part of that is because Canada has one of the most abundant fresh water sources in the world. When you look across our country, you'll see that the coastlines are the ones that are the least metered because they have the most access to fresh water. BC has an abundant amount of fresh water coming from mountain glaciers. Quebec has an abundant amount of fresh water coming from their freshwater lakes. In the middle of Canada, it's a different picture. In the middle of Canada, yes, they do have lakes, but they also have to get their water sources from groundwater, which is, if you're not close to Lake Ontario, you're going to get it from rivers or ground source water, which means there are pumping costs, which means a good portion of delivering water, fresh water to people 24/7, 365, costs money. So when it costs money to recoup that cost, that's why municipalities put in water meters. So again, it's not a it's not a hidden fact that not everybody is metered across Canada. It's pretty well known, but it's getting there. What's interesting, just came out in the fall, is that BC, you don't see it on this slide, they just put legislation in for metering because they've had too many boil water advisories, because too many people were without fresh water. Now, a big part of that is due to overuse, overconsumption. So they can't keep up with the consumption. So we're going to talk about how we cope and manage with curbing consumption. So speaking of which, when you look at an unmetered system, the statistics show that per capita on a daily basis, the national average of daily use is 467 liters per day. Contrast that with a metered residential home, you're in and around 266 liters per capita per day. So there is significant reduction in consumption when you do meter. Now, obviously, that's because people have to pay for what they use, so they're more apt to conserve, to reduce their water bill. When you are looking at comparing a flat rate system as compared to a meter system, you're looking at going from a system where you're kind of guessing and hoping that you're going to be able to manage the system, manage demand. We hope that if we have a flat rate system, the flat rate revenue we get is going to cover all our costs to produce that water, provide it to the residents. And we're guessing of some fashion of water loss. Because we're not measuring it, the best we can do is an educated guess. The other part of it is when you have a flat rate system, there's no incentive for a resident or any commercial user to conserve water, right? You'll see people washing their driveways in the middle of a summer in the dry, dead heat when they can easily just, sweep that driveway. So they're using a precious resource to do those daily tasks they don't need to. Whereas when you go to a metered system, you're going to a system that you're going to have a more financially self-sufficient model where you can actually make those million-dollar decisions based on real data. Do I need to put in a new water tower? How do I know? How do I know it's not people over-consuming water? How do I know I have my ground source distribution water leaks under control? If you don't meter even the commercial side of things, you're just guessing at that. So I'm guessing I need a larger water tower because we have to pump more water. Well, why is it that we have to pump more water? Right? So those are the things that metering provides. It can give you the incentive for end users to conserve water, reduce the costs, to produce that water, and then defer. Let's say you need to put a new water tower, defer it down the road. I don't have to put it in today. I can actually plan for it for future when the town population actually grows larger, or will necessitate more infrastructure. I think we can all agree around this room here that the cost of water to produce, to treat, to deliver that water has increased much more than your average CPI. One of the biggest factors, one of the biggest bills in providing potable water to a resident, to a commercial user, is the actual pumping costs. If you look at your electricity bill to pump water, it's probably one of your highest costs, next to the chemicals that treat the water. So putting in, pumping more water just increases your cost because of those ancillary costs, right? It's because of those rising costs that are, especially these days, the rising costs are getting higher and higher, and we're not charging more for water, whether it's flat rate or metered. It's trying to find that balance of charging for the right amount of water but also making sure people use water effectively and efficiently, not over-consuming water. Doing the right thing from an environmental stewardship perspective. If I look at and start talking about what we do at Neptune, we're a meter manufacturer, first and foremost. We also provide the installation services and the maintenance services. So a big part of our business is just, understanding where we need to provide solutions for water utilities. We've been producing meters for over 100 years at Neptune, and the traditional water meter you see in most places around this area. You go to any town that has meters, it's going to traditionally be a Neptune water meter, and it's going to be a mechanical water meter. Mechanical water meters, as the name implies, it's a physical device that measures water mechanically. So, just like your vehicle, your car, that when you buy it brand new, it works great 100% out of the box, but over time has wear and tear. Same thing with a mechanical water meter. The typical lifespan of a mechanical water meter is roughly 15, 20 years, but it really depends on how much you use it. So if you drive your vehicle really hard, it's not going to last as long. If a water meter is put in a situation where it's consuming a lot of water, there's moving parts in there, there's more water passing through it, the more wear and tear, the less accurate it gets over time. So when I typically say 15, 20 years, it doesn't mean that the meter will expire. It doesn't mean it will not function anymore. It just means the useful life is reduced to the point where, is it okay to leave the meter in place even though I'm not getting as much revenue from that water meter? At the end of the day, when you have meters in place, that there is your cash register for the municipality. After taxes, this is the only real thing that brings in revenue, is the water meter. So you want to be able to measure water accurately to get as much revenue back as possible. Our traditional water meter, given it does wear and tear over time, it will lose accuracy, and people will ask, well, what would be the accuracy over 20 years? Is it going to be 50% accurate, so I'm losing 50% revenue? No. But it will lose a certain amount. 5, 10, 15%, just depends on how hard we push that water meter. A family of 5 using lots of water in that house will wear and tear on that meter more, so that meter won't be as accurate in 15 years as compared to grandma's meter, which will probably be spick and span really good in 20 years, right? But the nice thing about the water meters, you can leave them in situ, and they'll still record revenue. They'll still record consumption. It's just how much revenue loss are you willing to accept before you have to enter the home to replace that water meter. This is where I want to introduce the most recent advance in metering technology. This is solid-state, non-mechanical water meters. This is what is in the market today. Within the last 5 to 10 years, the adoption rate is becoming more and more. This meter does not have any moving parts, so it will record water consumption accurately for 20 years. Now, 20 years is based on the fact that any ultrasonic meter, including Neptune's, is battery operated. So it will require 100% guaranteed replacement in 20 years, because that battery will exhaust in 20 years. But it guarantees no loss in accuracy, which means no loss in revenue for that duration. So this is the latest and greatest in terms of the actual physical meters. When it comes to putting a system together, there's one thing to put meters inside a house or a business. The other side of it is to be able to collect the actual data. Today's world, we have 2 different types of wireless systems. Now, you could definitely put in a metering system where you can go to every single house, walk up to every single house, and read the meter physically. It's very cumbersome. There's still lots of places in Ontario that do that, but it takes them weeks, if not months, to get to every single premise, every single home, to get eyeballs on that meter. So this is where we came up with the term automatic meter reading and advanced meter infrastructure systems. This is a wireless way of reading meters, whether you drive around and the meters transmit a signal, or you set up radio receivers around town and the readings just come to the town office. Either which way, you don't have to go to every single home to read a meter. When you go to every single home to read a meter, additionally, all you're getting is a meter reading. And the best you can do is how fast you can get to that home. So if you're only able to read on a quarterly basis, you're only getting a read every 3 months. Versus an AMR system, you can get up to 15-minute data if you really wanted to by downloading the data packet from that meter, but you still have to physically get to the home. Or you can just put up the antennas and let that data come to you, let it stream back to the office. It's just a different modality in how the readings are captured. Either way, it's done wirelessly. But a good system is one that's designed to grow with any town. And at Neptune, we've designed the system to be future-proof, but really it's backwards compatible. All that means is if you want to put a metering system in today, and let's say today's requirements, today's needs do not necessitate readings coming from grandma's house 24/7, 365, but I need to bill, first and foremost, but I also want an extra customer service, for instance, trying to understand if there's a leaky toilet inside that home or a leaky faucet. I want to be able to inform a resident of that nature. I can do that with an AMR system. I can do that driving around because the data packets allow me to capture that information from the meter. And if down the road, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we want to put up an antenna to collect that information and get it more readily every single day, you can do that because the foundation is the meter. The foundation is already put in place. You're just changing the way you collect the information. That's the really nice advantage of having the R900 system. It will grow as you need it to grow. Now, part of this, putting in a nice system to collect readings and billing, for one thing, collect all the information in case somebody may have a leak, collecting the right information that the meter was installed at that location, all that requires a little bit of know-how in order to put a system together. So you get everything out of that system you just put in. And that's where Neptune services come in. Because we are the manufacturer, because we've been doing this for decades, we've honed a system where we got really good at putting meters into people's homes. Because to put a meter on a piece of pipe is not that difficult. You're cutting a piece of pipe, putting a couple of tail pieces on, and it's done. The hardest part of any universal metering project is getting into that house. That is the hardest part. How do I get inside a home so I can actually put that meter in, right? And that's where Neptune services come in. We've been doing this for over 3 decades now. We are currently doing this, as some of you know, in the city of Cornwall right now, because they don't have meters. They didn't have meters last year up until this beginning of January. So we're doing that project right now. We've honed this system to be really good at getting into people's homes, getting those appointments. And a big part of that is the communication plan. We've done such a really good job of understanding what it takes to get people to call into our call center, get people to book our appointments online. We manage it all through what we call the meter information system, the MIS. All that's the heartbeat of our project system. We take the data from a town, those are the addresses, people's names, we feed it into our database, and we structure a public communication and education plan, first and foremost, to get the word out there. So the communication plan is through multiple facets, social media presence, if you have it. I understood earlier on, you guys mentioned people have Facebook, and they follow you on that. That's great. We'll use the Facebook. So there are marketing materials that we've designed that can be posted on Facebook. We do open houses, so depending on timing of when the meters go in, we usually structure it so that There's a public forum, people come in, ask questions. In the city of Cornwall, I think we're doing up to 3 different communication sessions, public communication sessions, in and around different areas within Cornwall. But a big part of it is when we send letters out to homeowners, they're able to call into our call center, which is multilingual, because we are, one, a bilingual country, but also in the larger parts, metropolitan areas of Canada, that are multilingual, so we have to staff for that. Believe it or not, people still call into call centers. I still call Bell physically. People still call Neptune. But we're at a 50% uptake in terms of our online booking system because it is a live, real-time online booking system. Just like how you would book your plane ticket on Air Canada, it's the same exact style. You reserve your appointment. It's not a send an email to somebody and hopefully somebody calls you back the next day. That's what affords us the ability to get into people's homes to book those appointments. The other nice part of having a staffed call center, it is not an AI chatbot, is we can answer questions on how the project is supposed to run, how the meter installation is supposed to happen. So that's the really nice part about having a call center. Depending on your demographics, people may still have questions. So that's why we staff a call center. On the other side of things, there's a data management piece. It's one thing to put a meter in, but you're collecting the information as to where the meter is. So that's an asset. You have to know where that asset is. It's a serialized asset. The name of the game in the municipal utility business is asset management. So every piece of equipment is serialized, so you can track that asset, track the longevity of it, and know when you need to change that asset out. So we manage all that data. Where that piece of equipment goes, what account that belongs to, when it went in. We also capture pictures of every single stage within the installation process, from the beginning where there was no meter all the way through to the end when there is a meter. Digitally capturing information is a lot more accurate because now we're able to also validate that information. We can validate through GPS coordinates that we were actually physically at the house. We've acquired a signature. And at the end of the day, this is your data. We've put up a portal just for town staff so that when the project is undergoing, they can access when that project's underway, who's getting the appointment, when that meter went in, and seeing if you really wanted to, a live installation happen digitally. So that's everything we've done to make sure the town has kept apprised as the progress of the metering project. Really, we're looking at a universal metering program, looking at a metering project. What often gets sort of overlooked is that people get stuck on the actual physical product, the meters themselves and the technology go along with it. But the hard part is actually the planning. The hard part is the project management that goes into executing that project. What the customer service is going to look like. It's typical when something goes bad in the community, word spreads real fast. Sometimes when something goes well, word gets to you guys, but it is the opposite, that word spreads really fast when something goes wrong. So customer service is number one. In addition, field quality. If I can't provide you with certainty where that asset is going, how can you rely on the fact that you're putting a bill to the right person? So I want to kind of conclude with a couple of statements from considerations perspective. A metering project is the only project you'll ever do in a municipality where you have to enter into every single person's home. It's not like a road where you're putting down your asphalt. You're not going to every single home. When you put in water pipe, you're putting it down a street, you're not going to every single home. We are going to every single commercial account, every single resident to put in a water meter. So the art, if I want to say, of a metering project is how do you structure the communication plan? How do you structure the project management plan to get that metering project started, for one, and completed on time and on budget? With Neptune, because we make the water meters, because we also install it, there's only one person to communicate with, one company, right? There's no finger pointing that happens. Well, they make the meter, so it's got to be the meter's problem. Well, they put the meter in wrong, so it's got to be the installation problem. They didn't set up the software correctly, so it's got to be the setup problem. Data management, project management, product solutions, all that comes under one turnkey solution, and that's what Neptune provides. So we guarantee the accountability on that front, because there's essentially one throat to choke, so to speak. Okay?
Thank you very much. So before I get questions from, so just on a note of item, I believe is 9.6, is, so there's comments about looking at putting money aside for budgeting, which we are gonna be going. We do have a little bit of time. My only thing is, the meters is one portion right now from the way we operate, and is we have a fixed rate, so we know what's coming in. We've implemented, I believe, a hike at 5-point-something% to maintain our, so now the meter, I'm a strong believer in meters. People, for our consumption, we are getting into development, which is now, you know, when you don't need, if you're not paying the hydro bill, you don't need to shut the light off. It's the same thing, I think, with water. The only thing we have to look at is the meter side of things, which I really appreciate. It gives a good overview of how this all works. I do have questions, but at the same time, how our structure is gonna take shape, taking it from a fixed rate, because what happens, we don't wanna go down, we need to maintain what we are getting, and with that is, it's fine, people, the worry of some is, okay, well, if we go to meter, people use less water, well, guess what, are we gonna get less money? And that's where it comes in with straight, or a fixed rate that comes in with the consumption, again, depending if it's commercial, if it's residential, or apartments in R4. So that's a lot of part that I think Treasurer would be able to give us the finance side of things, of how does that work. There's way more, I think, involved in what we are looking at here. I think this is the first step to understand how the meter works, whether it's, you know, the rate of something malfunctioning, the rate of different costs between when you mention mechanical and not. You've got the antenna, that side of things, where does that come up, and the maintenance on it. And last is when you're trying to sell, saying about going into people's home, my first part is to sell people that if we give you meters, they want to see value for their money. They're not just saying, oh, we're going to pay more because now we're, so we have to identify, if you do use, what are we going to be looking at as far as, hey, if you drop your consumption, right now it's safe to say we have a rate of just slightly over 300 quarterly. What is it going to look like if we were to go to meters and get a plan in order to identify what, maybe with help from your expertise, and is what I need to understand before we move, saying, oh yeah, let's allocate money in this budget to go and get, so before I go, maybe you can answer, I'll just take, is there any questions from the floor at this point? I don't know if I've covered a portion, but Deputy Mayor Densham.
Well, a few. So thank you for your presentation, Ray. It's good education for sure for us to understand this. The integration with billing, do you handle that as well, or is that, because I'm not even sure how we bill, whether or not that goes directly onto our tax bill or not. So I'm assuming you can provide the data. You open up the conduit to the data would be the simplest thing from your perspective, but do you get more involved in the billing activities from that perspective? Because going from flat rate to individual is now means we have to track every data point and be able to audit that over time as well. Looks like Blake may want to respond.
Basically, through the mayor, yes, this is not a new system. It basically I discussed with various municipalities how you're going to change into the meter system. It's not going to be that complicated. We have to, like I mentioned before, we have to have our base fund. And the various ways of doing that, if it's on the usage plus the surcharge, so we make sure we know what the consumption is going to be. There's been lots of history showing that what the consumption's gonna drop to. We're not gonna, basically, we shouldn't be charging them more money overall. Some people are gonna be paying less, the ones who are using it, they're gonna be paying more. And it's not, it's not a new technology here. The formulas from different municipalities in STNG and across Ontario, they went through this all before and how to do the system. So basically, that's something that I'm going to have to fulfill your thoughts into. We started this back in 2010 with Blair about we should be putting meters in because, like I said before, it's the infrastructure money that we have to invest because we have too much capital growth for the amount of water we have in the township. So, not to put a push on this, but the financial side, the different formulas that the treasurer can look into, I get the information and go from there.
So if I can just, before I go, if I can just interject. So I understand you're saying of the meter they're going to use. Right now, my big concern is our commercial businesses in town have been underpaying drastically. Not like I've been looking at different municipalities and what they're covered into their fixed rate, never mind their consumption, just a fixed rate is up here, where right now we're all even across the board. So how are we gonna go and establish through the finance department to establish where we're going to be in line with the rest of the province?
What I'm just saying is there's so many municipalities have this kind of data that we can look at their formulas, the way they do it. I know I talked to North Dundas, they want to get rid of what they already proposed to do, just to do what we want to do. It's not going to be a change in the game. We have to maintain the revenue we want for infrastructure improvement, for our cost operating, and make it fair for all the residents. who
Which
pay.
again comes
Yeah.
from finance, not so much roads, but go
Well,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I guess what I want to try to do is direct my question to Ray here, because we're talking something that's bigger. Should we have them, et cetera, et cetera? That's a debate we can have at another time, in my opinion. I want to use Ray's time respectfully here and try to understand his product and what he's offering, so that when we get to that point of discussion, we're as well informed as we can be. So my question really was about integration with billing systems. Is that something that you play a role in, or is that something that you basically open up your data pathways and it's up to us to work through?
That's great. That's a great question through you, the mayor. So definitely Neptune does provide integration assistance from integrating the metering software package with the billing software package. So typically a municipality would have a tax roll system that already would have some fashion of the water meter billing module already built into it. You just have to be able to activate that. The great thing across Canada is that Neptune has worked with probably almost 99.9% of the billing system vendors out there. Nowadays, there's one company that's been gobbling up all the different billing packages, Central Square, so we're very, very well versed in integrating with them. And the nice thing with metering systems, there's only one Neptune, multiple billing vendors, multiple billing software companies. They've all kind of standardized on the Neptune transfer file, so to speak. So we can take the readings from a home and translate that into the billing package through just a quick file transfer mechanism. But we definitely assist on that front. Where we can't help is that because we don't pay the billing company any money whatsoever, we typically rely on the municipality to help us get in contact with them, saying, we're under contract for the town, you have to work with Neptune to get the transfer file working. Once that's done, it's pretty smooth.
Couple more questions as well. So you handle all of the installation process, including contacting the residents, booking the appointments, doing the install, and then activating the unit once it's in place. Is that correct? And would we be paying a fee per install? And is that likely to be a fixed rate, or is that dependent upon how much time and pushback you get from the residents base?
That's a great question, Councillor, through you, the mayor. The typical model from an invoicing perspective at Neptune is a per installation price. We don't get paid unless that meter goes in, plain and simple. What we typically find, based on the communication plan we have, and with some assistance from the municipality, knowing the demographics, we kind of have to rely on, okay, who's in town? Are there any people, so to speak, that are not the friendliest to deal with, who will probably ignore us? Let us know those up front, because we like to get to the hardest ones first. We don't like to leave it at the very end, because then it just drags things along. If we can't get that meter in to that house, we just don't invoice you for that meter. That's how it works for us.
Two more questions, Mr. Mayor, if I may. If we wanted to do a pilot, let's say on commercial businesses first in the area, just to see how this works and how the relationship, is that something you're open to? Are we going to pay a premium for that kind of rollout?
Another great question, Councillor, through you and the mayor. It's not so much of a pilot per se, is the only thing you kind of pay extra for is mobilization costs. So if we have to remobilize a project manager, remobilize the tech forces to go come here to North Stormont, then that's just like additional charge for that. But it's overall grand scheme of things in terms of a universal metering project is nominal.
Okay, and you also mentioned that you expect the meters to last for 20 years. Does that mean they come with a 20-year replacement guarantee, or what does that look like?
Another great question. A lot of great questions when it comes to metering through you, the mayor. So the 20-year life expectancy, from a product perspective, let's say we talk about the non-mechanical front, because that's easier to understand because there's a battery inside that thing. It is a 20-year life expectancy with a 20-year guarantee. So there's a warranty associated with that, which includes the transmitter portion of it as well. That's also 20 years, all right? From an installation perspective, we typically do a 30-day installation warranty. So within 30 days, you typically will find if something went wrong with cutting in a meter, so installing the meter, if there's something happens along the pipe inside that commercial setting or that person's home, you'll know pretty closely within 10 days if there's a leak that's happening, because they'll see it. It'll come up. But we do provide a warranty from an installation perspective. But yeah, it's that typical from a warranty perspective is 20 years for the product.
And the warranty covers basically just the product itself?
Just the product itself. It's not a, we'll come out and service the product. Yes.
Last but not least, just does the consumer have access to their own data? Or how might the consumer have access to the data?
Actually, another fantastic question. You should actually come to my conference, the conference in Cornwall tomorrow, because I'm doing a presentation on that through you, the mayor. There is a consumer portal that is available. That portal, in our industry, we call it an engagement tool. So when you put up a metering system, the data technically belongs to you because it is your asset, your water meter, but the resident has access to their consumption profile, and you just have to give them access to it. That's all it is. They don't have access to your software that you see in town, because that has a lot of other data points that you don't want to expose to every resident inside North Stormont, but they have access to their account information and how they use water. The nice thing about that portal, we call it an engagement tool, because then if that data stream is coming to them every single day, they can set up their own alerts. If they're snowbirds still and they go to Florida, they can set up an alert, say, tell me if there's being water consumed in the house. If there is, and I'm not there, that's a problem, right? So they can set up those alerts themselves so that you're not on the hook for when they call you and they have a high bill complaint that you should have told me. Well, we've already given you all the tools. You should have activated that tool.
Okay, so I'll, unless there's other questions, so if I can comment on, like Steve is asking these questions, I think it's something that right now, we were fortunate enough that I think you were in the area. There was, I think it's brought by this master service plan that was done. I think they, and Aqua, our service provider, I think are directing us that there's value in meters. So the discussions have started. We are looking at from a small 400 square foot apartment with an 80-year-old and paying right now the same amount as a commercial business. So I say we have stuff we have to deal with, and I think the process has started. So there might be way more questions to come, and I think it's something that what you're saying about doing a conference I think right now is part of a half-hour delegation. I think there's more value but I think talking with our finance department, getting more of a structure and an understanding, and from there, then I think there's more questions that might evolve as we move forward. So again, Ray, I appreciate your time. Do we have access to maybe Craig or Aqua or Blake to get in contact with you for any kind of questions? I have your card. I am sure it's, but there might be way more questions to come, I think,
Absolutely.
to help us make that decision. So with that said, again, thank you very much. We do have to tend to the rest of, and we do have a closed session, so I appreciate it. Keep your email open for questions, and if council is okay, if no further questions, we will move on with the agenda. So again, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, council, thank you, staff.
Thank you. Okay, so let's roll. I see there's a few that are ready to join us. So moving on to the adoption of our previous minutes of our previous meeting, Mr. Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved as presented. Regular meeting, September 23rd, 2025 minutes.
Thank you. Any comments or questions in regards to? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? Motions. Sorry. Oh, you mean you're the one that?
I'm not sure.
I'm happy to move it.
All right.
So if we can, yeah. Did you want to maybe put your initials beside Steve? Thank you. So all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 8.1, adoption of minutes of our committees and local boards. Mr. Clerk.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Bajelli, that the Council of the Township of North Stormont accept the following committee minutes as presented for information purposes. South Nation Conservation Authority Board of August 21st, 2025.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Moving to receiving of our monthly staff reports and recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Be it resolved that the following monthly reports be received. Bylaw enforcement, building, fire, recreation and facilities, public works, CAO.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from, go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Just a quick one. I thought I saw something about open air fire permits on hold. I just didn't know why that. Just
Sorry, my apologies through you, Mr. Mayor. They were on hold at the time, and they've been, they're now no ban on.
I was just because they were on hold because of the ban.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions in regards to reports? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the reports? Motion is carried. Item 9.2 in regards to, God, that's a long one. Are you ready, Adrian? So go ahead. 9.2 in regards to draft letter of support for consultation on the future of natural gas expansion in Ontario.
Moved by Councillor McDonald.
Mr. Mayor, I think if you seek it, you'll find unanimous consent from council to dispense with the reading of the motion.
All in favor? fencing. Perfect, so the motion is on there. All in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to the arena's advertisement, item 9.3. Mr. Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Township of North Stormont receives and approves report number REC 16, 2025 from the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Facilities, and further authorizes the inclusion of additional venues and pricing options for advertisement. And that Council authorizes the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Facilities to enter into an agreement with Prime Arena Services for the purpose of conducting advertisement research and soliciting sponsorships on behalf of the township.
Thank you. So generally, I can ask our rec director just, I think it's, well, it's all there in front of us. My one request was to just seeing what our historical revenue was, and council will see there's a page that was left to us that kind of oversees that, which Pierre can give us a quick overview. And I wanted to see what the potential would do to the fact that we are having a third party. And it's one thing if we're looking at increasing. So before I go to Pierre, is there any questions from council as far as elaborating further on this? Seeing no, so Pierre, maybe just give us a quick overview on.
Well, thank you to the chair. This is sponsorship that we had discussed at the beginning of my employment that needed to be changed within the arena. So I looked at the historical of it from the documents that I managed to find from 2022, 2024. You see the total revenue was $56,1275. This is very hard to judge because back then some had a 5-year contract or 1-year contract. When you sign a 5-year contract, the initial payment is done once. So the next following 4 years, you don't see any income because you only paid once. So it's very hard to come budget for advertisement because it's always different contracts at different time in different years. So basically, I looked into 2025 as of October, our variance report, we had $3,050 because some were due in 2025. So you've seen an increase compared to our budget. We had scheduled 2,000, we had 3,000. Some were due to come in, and we still have the beams that we have to solicit or sponsors on the beams that we have at the arena for the price that was selected by council at $500 for renewal per year. So if you look at the estimate by the end of the year, it should be around 8,000. So you see sometimes there's a big difference depending on when this comes up as far as a renewal or another contract that came in. So if we took the average, and as you see, I did indicate there's a lot of new potential place to advertise in the arena, such as the boards, on-ice surface, the back of the viewing area below the Finch Recreation Hall. That all back wall is empty. So these are all potential new advertisement places that we can solicit to fill out. So with the contract, I broke it down with, went and measured and everything, so I broke it down exactly how many signs would fit where and how many signs would fit on the boards and on the ice. And in your report, you have the breakdown. The only thing I did talk to the company that came forward for the advertising is sometimes on the 5-year contract, they kind of removing for the short advertisement on the walls. A lot of companies rather see a 1 or 2 year contract. If they have to change their logo, if they change their business, they already paid a 5-year. He recommends to go to a 1 or 2 year for these on the walls, but to do exceptions for on ice because of the cost of getting a print for on ice is a lot more expensive than the coroplast 4x8 on a wall. Same thing with center ice. They recommend to go a longer term because the investment to put your logo on the center ice is very expensive. So I'm sure to that company that want to recover some of their money with advertisement, they'd like to see a longer term than a 1 or 2 year for center ice or naming of the arena or whatever it may be. So there will be some small changes as far as how we're gonna go from just a single 2-year to a 5-year phase, because usually the first year and second year is the initial cost is done by the advertiser. So technically, the township doesn't pay for any signs. It comes from the advertiser, so they own their sign. So if they said, okay, I'm done with my advertisement, I'd like to move it, each advertiser will receive their signs back. They don't belong to the township, they belong to the company. So we'll take the sign down, we'll put it aside, we'll give them a call, you can come and pick up their signs. So basically, I just went, the perfect world, we'd sell all the advertisement in 1 year, a 1 or 2 year contracts, you got the numbers in front of you. But it might take 5 or 6 years before we go half, or it all depends on the advertisement, how things are going. And it's a little bit harder because we don't have any elites team in playing in North Stormont at the arena compared to Junior B, Junior A, or AAA hockey, or where it attracts more people to the facility. The only advantage we'll have now to propose to our advertiser is we'll have barn streaming, so we'll be able to go live online and live, so people be more viewing of their advertisement compared to before. So live barning will certainly help with the advertisement portfolio. So this is kind of hard to justify as a certain amount a year. It all depends when the contracts get done. I think personally, I think it's a win-win. There's no cost to us to do the advertisement. Yes, there's a fee from a third party soliciting advertisement on behalf of the township. But if you look at the records we had in the past, if we can just double or triple our revenue, we're in a win-win situation, and it just makes good promotion for a rink.
So the fee, though, that you're talking about, is it not a percentage of?
Yes.
So if we don't get the advertising, we don't, like, they will collect on
They will collect only on signed contracts, once the payment is done to the township.
So my
Then it's-
question is, being the fact that it's a third party, is there an opportunity where they will try to, or they're not there to get sponsorship, or will they work at that? Maybe Craig is.
They're there to get the sponsorship. That's their job, is they will solicitate advertisement
On our
for
behalf.
arena.
Perfect. Craig.
Just to add to the Director of Rec, it is a full-time focused third party. That is their singular focus is they're basically incentivized to maximize those advertisements. They don't get paid their 20% unless they sell ads. And again, they have the experience and they have the broad industry contacts to maximize the potential for us to increase our advertising costs.
And the historical revenue, from what I can see, is that amount that you see is over those 3 years. It's not per year. So I think we've got reason to, I think it should be, we cannot go backwards. I think it's only could potentially get better. So I'll go with Councillor Bergelli and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Director, for that. It's great. This is something we've been looking for a while. One question I had with the third-party advertisement company, is there, as part of this agreement, is there a non-compete with them directly? So as in, if somebody approached us directly, or somebody you knew came up to you and said, I want to buy this ad, here's what I want, can we then take that, implement and receive 100% of the profits, not have to cut that? Or are we, as part of this contract, does everything have to be signed through this third-party company?
But through the chair, I'll be honest with you, I got the contract here, but I have to reread it. I believe we have to go through them for all advertisement, because they'll do all the paperwork and do all the billing and everything, and we just receive the funds transferred to us. Then we transfer the 20% back to them once the money's transferred in our account. So they take full ownership of the advertisement.
And maybe I'll add to that, the contract that we're signing, how many years are we tied to them? Is there specifics there?
Yes, right now it's a 1-year term. It's like a tryout. We're going to try it out, see how this is working out for us. If we see that is getting probably both parties will see if it's not worth the investment, or second of all, if they can't find enough advertisement, then they're probably not worth for them. So I think a 1 year will determine what we have. I know it's important because the on-ice logos that goes on the ice got to be done when we put the ice in. So this will be, this has to be all done before August, so we get the prints made up and put on the ice when we do the ice in September. So it'd be very important that we push this guy to say, okay, this is what needs to come forward, and then we'll see what the results are. They're well-known in other municipality as for advertisements, so he seems to have a list of potential advertisers already, but we're gonna really push him to start with North Stormont businesses first, and then he can go to the outside business that to fulfill the rest of our advertisement spots. But I think I would like to push him. He asked me for a list of North Stormont businesses so he can approach them with this new advertisement portfolio.
Councillor McDonald.
It was kind of on the company, like I couldn't really find them online. I just wonder about sole sourcing. I wonder about who else they work for and who they are, because I didn't see them. I had trouble figuring out who this company was.
Well, we hired them to the arena to do our board cleaning, so it's, they do
Okay.
other arena to the board cleanings
I
of
did
the
see a
arena, and they
board
have the
cleaning.
advertisement at the same time.
John.
Mm-hmm.
John at Prime Arena Services.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see advertising on their website. I just saw the board cleaning, but okay. And I guess there's not a lot of companies that do this. That's why we just go with one.
There's another company in Castleman that does that also. I can also approach them in Castleman if you want another idea of.
I wasn't sure. It's hard to know the value of the contract and just to make sure purchasing policy is being followed. But also, if it's only 1 year, does that mean like if you did a 5-year, they'd take 20% up front of that 5-year agreement? I would assume.
Correct. So when the payment comes in, it's a 5-year, it'll be a 20% of that amount.
And yeah, it would be great to increase the revenue. I mean, obviously, just the one thing I worry about is just too much. If it looks like kind of ridiculous in there with too much advertising. And the other thing is just naming, like naming buildings, and that feels difficult. Like it
Yeah.
feels better to name it after a community member or something very, but then I could just see that being a little spicy, because you did reference a revision of policy within your report, and that's not proposed today, but it does sound like there's some things that would need to be sort of enshrined within policy to better understand what we're actually agreeing to, I guess. I feel so-
Rogers and Scotiabank have been calling me all day, so it's
the Frank Landry Arena,
Yeah.
the DevCore Arena, you know. Anyways, it's more about the what's than, like, you want to make some money, I'm very happy to support that. But just, it's always like there's more behind it, and I don't know what the policy says, so maybe conversation's not done, I don't know.
So right now, the boards, I understand the boards and on the wall and stuff. As far as naming rights, I think that would come back to council, because that's another level, and who and what and when, so.
Yeah, through the chair, I did put this because a lot of arenas now have different names on the arena. It's not called a township. Some of them it's such a name complex, or this is very, very often done. Even dressing room now, they dedicate a dressing room to a family, to somebody. I just give a pile of options of what we had, and this one option that was never put forward is the naming rights of the arena, and it's something council, if there's interest, we can bring it back and say, look, I took the average what they had other places where they did give name rights, and with our economy here in North Stormont, this is the amounts they came in. So this came out of AI. It says, okay, this is because the economy in North Stormont compared to the economy here, you can't be charging $250,000 for naming your arena because you don't have junior B, don't have elite hockey, you have this, and your economy down here, it says this is the average you should be looking if you want to do naming rights to the place. So,
Any further, go ahead, Chuck.
Repair, it's great to see this, getting this revenue stream organized here, but one question I had, which I don't know if maybe you overlooked, your third party that's live streaming this, is there not advertising on when you're watching? Is that not something else that would be a sellable feature?
no, live streaming, we book live streaming, it's people that join into this link if you want, and you can go and watch, let's say a broomball game at 8 o'clock at night from their living room. But live stream doesn't sell advertisement.
No, okay.
They just show the games, and people do register to go and watch from anywhere where Wi-Fi is available
With a membership.
with a membership.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great idea, actually. I think if we want to trial this, I think we will have their manpower and their expertise working for us to see if some momentum can be gained. And if it's only a one, I'd be happy if it was a couple of years contract with them. Then if we learn a few things and we think we can do it better ourselves, we always have the option of doing that in future years. One other question I have, and I think it was Councillor McDonald who brought it up at the time, was can we write into the contract that we have the right to refuse certain advertising that may misalign with our values? Is that something we can put in the contract?
Through the chair, I'm sure we could. At the end of the day, it's council that decides, right? So if there's certain advertisement you do not want to see in the facility, if you can just provide me that information, and I will relay information to the third party to make sure he doesn't accept those sorts of advertisement.
I don't know that I can make a decision on the spot here, but it's something maybe we'll need to talk about if
Certainly, I'm available if you want to discuss, and I
So-
think we have a good idea what we're talking, so it's,
Is it safe to say if you go back, relook at that contract, make sure everything's well in place, if there's is it something that we're looking at passing because of timeline, or is that something that could be, give you the go-ahead at the next meeting once we've got to even just review the contract itself? Because right now, we're just saying yes to the advertising, but now when it comes to third party, like as Councillor McDonald said, do we go to, do we sole source this to the one, or do we, so that's the part that still needs to be answered. So Craig, can you maybe add to that?
Through the chair, I would suggest that council defers this until the 28th. Pierre and internal staff can look into a couple of these items so we can bring it back.
I
for
think
more
if we're
fulsome
looking at
discussion.
supporting this, myself, I am, but it's just, there's still little details that maybe we'll have you bring it back on the 28th with some of these questions to be answered.
yeah, through the chair, my biggest was to show you what's coming out as potential advertisement, and that we added because the service contract was sent to us, so just to present to you, this is what the service contract, we're talking about 20% of the fees, so it's embedded in this draft contract, so we'll be working on it.
Perfect, thank you. So with that said, I'll bring the motion. So do we just bring it, well, first of all, I'll ask the question. So the motion's on the table, all in favor? See none, are we looking at deferring? So motion is to defer. And Craig, if we can look at, I'm not sure if the timeline is, if October 28th works, that would be excellent. I'll leave it with you and our rec director. Moving on to item 9.4, grant approval.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Vigelli, that the Council of the Township of North Stormont approves the report Admin 18-2025 from the CAO clerk to endorse and approve the grant submission to the Round 3 of Community Emergency Preparedness Grant, including the $5,000 service fee to grant match for a successful application.
Thank you. So that is for this building here.
Through the chair, yes, it is for the generator to operate as our EOC, or Emergency Management Headquarters, if there is an emergency.
Perfect. So questions, go ahead, Steve.
So I just want to be clear on how the numbers play out here. The 5,000, I get it for grant match, no problem. Will the amount that we get for the grant pay the entirety of the generator, or will there still be additional costs on top of that?
Through the chair, this is a maximum grant of $50,000, which we will be submitting for. We've already put away, or council has already approved $50,000 from the 2025 budget. In the amount of $50,000, we predict depending on if we go with a natural gas or a diesel, and staff are leaning towards the diesel, it will be between 90 and 100,000. So we will have to maximize that funding stream.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If it doesn't like right now we have the Arena and Finch. I know the Chrysler Hall is set up with a is there an opportunity to utilize some of those facilities? Or like if it's not in, or are we looking at if we don't, when do we find out if we're successful or not? And if not, are we looking at budgeting the difference sooner than later?
In the plan, we always have a backup location. So the best case scenario is if we have a dedicated EOC. As the report indicates, the CIO suggests that we have a separate independent location for our professional and staff operations to respond to emergencies. Certainly, we can collapse our efforts and move to either Chrysler or Finch. But of course, those will be housing, the community members. It could be a morgue. So there's other layers that we have to look at. So yes, we would like to have this as a dedicated EOC, but we do have other options available to us, yes.
My question is, when is this funding stream closing, as far as identifying if, is that something where we're putting additional budget money aside this year, or do we, what's the administration?
It's a very aggressive closing date of October 28th. That's why we enlisted grant match assistance. One, because of their experience, and we want to leverage their expertise because it is a very competitive process. And Pierre and I have already reviewed the final draft, and of course it's with the caveat that council endorses the potential $5,000 fee. But yes, I don't know when the announcement would be made for the successful applications, but I do know October 28th is the deadline to submit.
Any further questions? Seeing none,
Just provide a little bit of insight into that. So MECP does run this grant continuously, so there's different rounds of it. So say we weren't successful in one and we wanted to reshift to a different facility with a new grant, absolutely can be done. It's just when those timelines open and close, that is the variable.
good, well, let's stay positive and we'll be successful. Good, seeing that, all in favor? The motion is carried. Moving on item 9.5 in regards to no parking signage in the village of Chrysler and Moose Creek.
Moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Council of the Township of North Stormont approve the installation of no parking signage along George Street in Chrysler, north side, from County Road 12 to Chrysler John Street, and in the village of Moose Creek on the following streets: St. Yves Street, both sides, Laurier Street, both sides, St. Joseph Street, both sides, and Saboran Street, west side only, from Labrosse Street, County Road 15, to Valley Street, in order to alleviate traffic congestion and ensure unobstructed access for first responder emergency vehicles.
Thank you. Questions? I'll run down the line, go ahead.
Thank you for the map.
Yeah, yes, and
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
So, a couple of questions. One, where else do we have no parking in North Stormont right now? Or is this going to be, other than the fire department in Chrysler, which I think we already made a decision on that?
correct. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know he read north because of the report, but it's the opposite side of the mapping in Chrysler. So all that to say, we currently have the station, which is already mapped, and then that'll be it. This will be the new no parking. There's no parking during the winter season, obviously, from a certain time frame, but this is additional so that they're starting to cause restrictions and accesses. So for example, in the smaller streets, we're starting to see trailers being parked there, so they're just permanently there. These are causing problems.
Okay. The other question I have is this permanent no parking, like 24/7, 7 days a week? The only reason I ask that is I don't know how close the church is to St. Eva Street and whether or not they use that for parking as well. Like, are there certain things, I think we give a little bit of room for a very short period of time, like church services for people to park in certain areas. Is that something that we should consider?
I've never seen on St. Eve's church parking. I know there's church parking on Church Street, obviously, but Sabourin Street, there's a couple of events that happen during the winter months, more so than the summer months. But yes, I haven't seen church parking. I haven't been driven around on that same time frame, sir, so I couldn't tell you if there's enough parking there or not. I know funeral services are a little bit problematic everywhere, but to say that on a specific street, I haven't noticed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do for that, if that is the case. If they do on Sunday mornings have that, is that allowable for say, Sunday mornings only, or is that be?
There wouldn't be that exception.
I'll skip me and go there and then come back, so go
Not a
ahead.
question, actually, just to provide a little insight. I live right there. You will not find church parking on St. Eve or on Laurier, for that matter. They're very narrow streets. These are very narrow connectors, and that's why I think there's really the necessity to stop a trailer like that, even in the summer months. Most of that church overflow parking would happen along the cemetery, along Church Street, where there is quite a bit of space there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Shane.
Just for a little bit of clarity, maybe you did address this, but in your map of the Chrysler, the signage on the map here says no parking south side of George Street. The notation in it says north side. So is it going to be no parking whatsoever either side of?
So it's gonna be on the side, your side, which is, I don't do north and south, sir. I'm so sorry. I know that we confused it. What's your side of the street again?
North.
North, thank you.
Okay, so the north
Yeah.
side, because,
Yes, yeah,
So
there'll be no parking.
In front of the townhouses.
okay, so it should read south side.
Correct.
Yes.
And then below on the map, there's another one that says no parking both sides. I'm assuming that pertains to Second Street, the bylaw we'd already gone through.
Correct, that
Okay,
small
'cause I
section.
didn't know if it was something.
It
on
was
Queen Street.
existing, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So my only concern is with Moose Creek, so Chrysler's fine south side, George Street. What's on Second? Is it just one side on Second or
Second is both sides.
both sides? Which I support because of our fire service is right there, so never mind where my only thing is with regards to Moose Creek, to say both sides, can we not say one? I'm just saying is if there's some that would have a little driveway, I come up, I'm a family member, it's in the, and where am I going? Down to the church to park my car so I can walk back? Because if it's neither side, could we not, if we say south side is parking, not north side, to at least have a throughway? But when you say both sides, you're basically, I know you're removing all the cars, but it's something that over the last X number of years, how many calls have there been on that street? But to tell each resident that for 24/7, you can't even stop, like you could be ticketed, you can't even stop and stop by and see someone. So if you do one side, would that not alleviate room for emergency vehicle to at least go through versus the two sides?
Are you talking on the smaller streets? Excuse me,
Yeah,
through you, Mr.
because right
Mayor,
now
you
we
talk-
have none, right?
Right,
So they can park on
correct.
both
So
sides.
just parking my car, a small car, in one of those streets is very narrow. Some of the trucks would have difficulty going through. I'm not saying impossible, but it depends where there are. So some are using common sense and shifting over to the bit of the grass, if you want to call it that. But yeah.
I'll ask Councillor Bajelli, the fact that you mentioned you live there. So from my statement that I'm saying, well, if we start by saying one side of the street, what would your comment be? The fact that you're a resident on,
Those those small connector streets, St. Eve, Laurier, and St. Joseph are all very small, very tight. Where we are going to still have the one side, basically along Saburai Street, that's where you would need that additional parking. There's only basically one residence on like an actual house because they are very small kind of block streets. My main concern, and it is addressed, would be somewhere along Saburai where you would have obviously more residential housing, and also we do still have the restaurant there where patrons will park. So it's important to still allow some parking at least on one side of the street there. These small other three where they're saying none,
and that's what I'm looking, like I said, to myself, I can't visualize it, but if And Sabourin, do we still have one side on Sabourin, or would we?
Just one side, yes, sir. We
Okay.
do have we're starting to see a shift
Okay.
into the county road now, so there's that one side only, yes, sir.
I'm just putting myself,
Yep.
if I was to reside there and you decide to stop in and visit, well, I'm just looking if there is no parking signs and you're left driving quite a ways to go park your car, to walk back could be a factor. So, Deputy Mayor Gentry.
Yeah, the fact that, like, this is the beginning of no parking sign for North Stormont. And so I'm wondering how many people, after seeing no parking signs going up, are going to be saying, I need no parking signs on my road as well. And maybe you can comment on how you intend to enforce this as well. Are you going to be patrolling it, or will it just be if you get a phone call, you'll react? If we have to ticket or tow, what's the plan for enforcement?
And we haven't, enforcement is enforcement. If I drive by and there's a no parking, I usually, again, I'll knock on the door if I can find them and let them know, because there's an education process and there's an advertising process to that no parking area. Sabourin Street, I will be knocking at the restaurants, and every door will leave a flyer saying that it's being done. But enforcement will be exactly that. We'll be driving by and hopefully issue warnings the first time and go from there.
Proactive and reactive.
Proactive and reactive, thank you.
Okay, well, the motion's on, so with the motion read,
I'll just have one more comment. Just the only where I can see some pushback will specifically be on Sabourin. That will be the one, because if you see the houses there, some of them are, the driveways are very small. So we already start getting blowback for winter parking even on Sabourin Street, because, well, where am I gonna put my car now? I can't even do it. If we start doing that now, you're basically taking half of the households and saying you're all competing to park all your cars on one side of the road only. So that will be, that I can foresee this being a challenge for some people living there, where that entire east side of the street will be, or west side of the street will be full from end to end with people trying to park their cars, because right now it is staggered.
so I'm looking at, do we need further direction on how we want to move on this? The motion right now is to implement the parking signs. So the motion's on the table, so I'll put it to a vote. So all in favor of the motion as read. Okay, help me here.
Did the recommendation come from both our fire chief, like through your local fire deputies? Like, is this a recommendation of the fire services committee? Like, what is our weight behind this in order to defend the position of it? And the other thing I always ask is like consistency with other approaches in other municipalities. Is this normal?
The enforcement with other municipality is a lot stronger than ours, very much so. That's just in all municipalities. As for, I've seen ambulance have to back out of Sabourin because it was they couldn't fit through. I've seen our vehicles, pickups, having to stop, fold their mirrors in order to continue because, there's whatever traffic. Now, on a regular day, Sabourin is not inundated. Don't get me wrong. It is not inundated at all times. This is the best approach, is to have it on one side and block the other side. The side that's also asking us no parking is the hydrant side, which is causing another issue. They are parking 300 feet or 300 meters away. That's a deal. I'm not going to start measuring in order to damage vehicles if we needed to access our hydrants. So there's a whole slew of things coming at ease. Are we receiving a little bit more inquiries about our parking enforcement as to vehicles? Side roads, like the mayor mentioned, they are very narrow. For me to even drive just to turn around, in some instances, I backed up with my car. Again, is it going to be a popular request? No. But at this point, especially on Sabourin, it is a safety issue. It is an access point on several aspects, just not fire.
me, if like we can't provide fire services and emergency services effectively, like that's super important. So it seems like a good decision, and I didn't want to I'm not voting against it. I just wanted to make sure I understood what people's concerns were.
And the approach of enforcement has always been common sense in our area as well. Currently, we are reactive, proactive in certain times, but it's getting problematic for that.
If I can suggest, I know there's streets that you're saying that are very much, is it something we can implement? Not everything that you mentioned now with George is, but I'm just saying, I think there'll be a lot of kickback in Moose Creek, more than just with, they are tiny roads, I've driven back there with Sabourin, but I don't know if we go full-blown and just deal with it. It's just right now, I don't know where this is gonna lead, and I'm just trying to, because if it leads to the point where now we have to start enforcing because of it, there's no sense in implementing something if we're not gonna enforce it. So
You have to.
that's why we have to be prepared and do,
We do have our parking bylaw. This is just to put the signings on, right?
I guess I totally support the 2nd Street in Chrysler, the one where we're right at the fire hall, for sure, absolutely. The other ones, I get it. What I'm curious about is whether or not we're focusing on 2 streets and there's going to be a lot more of these that we are encountering. Like, what did we do in terms of a survey, in terms of an exhaustive survey across all of the settlement areas in North Stormont? Like, are there areas in Finch that we're going to be looking at next, and should we do it all at once, or?
Should the fire committee do a review?
Yeah, I don't know, it just feels like this is kind of coming out of the blue, and so I'm a little bit nervous what not just what the blowback will be in terms of the people who now can't park on their street or on that part of the street, but also the other people who will be saying, well, if you're putting up no parking here, I don't want parking on here. Like, I just want to be sure that we're going in with our eyes open. Whether or not advertising
Through the
our
chair,
intent-
it's reviewed objectively. We're not putting these, or we're not proposing these limitations to impose on the local inhabitants. This is for access for first responder vehicles, and I'm certainly advocating for this because the fire chief and I believe the public works superintendent would support it as well for snow removal. But I'm more concerned if we get a call that somebody couldn't get access to a fire truck or an ambulance, more so that they're inconvenienced because they can't park on the street. But that's just my opinion.
I just wonder if there's other streets like in Avonmore or whatever that are similarly small, or I guess like maybe just to try to mediate, because I think it has to happen. Like, we have to be able to provide these services. It's not acceptable that someone couldn't get emergency response because someone had their trailer parked in the road. Like, it's not okay. But maybe it needs to be a little clearer about when and why. And that's why I suggested we have these subcommittees and different groups that make recommendations to council. Does it make sense to have it supported by that group of fire services? Because I hear what Deputy Mayor Densham is saying, but I also think it's very important and we can't wait forever. And snow is also a factor, so I know that.
it's important, but advertising it and being, like you said, Nick is gonna be the one that's probably gonna hear the most from his community as deputy chief in Moose Creek, because it is labeled as the fire service needs to go through. So I'm just saying, if it was more, because right now, other than seeing it here, I'm sure nobody on Sabourin and the streets that you're naming are even aware of what we're doing. But at least if we are making them aware and we give time where, oh, okay, and just kind of, so when we do it, it's not like a slap in the face and an uproar from the community. So I don't know if it's something that could be, and Craig, with
I
your
mean, we could
experience.
certainly do an educational component. I think the fire chief has already suggested that we would take that proactive approach. And for the first month, we could hand out flyers and just educate the community before we start enforcement efforts. And yes, as the density increases in some of our other villages, there may be other streets that are impacted. I don't want to go to a process where we start looking at every village. If there's no parking there right now and it's not inhibiting vehicular ingress and egress, I think we leave that until a problem presents itself. There's been historical issues with these streets, not just with first responder vehicles, but with our plows and with our school buses. I understand school buses have to back down some of those streets because they simply can't get down to provide service to drop and pick up children. So I think we need to look at these bigger factors with the targeted streets.
Agreed. Okay, I'll go with Adrian.
I would say the one maybe thing we could look at, and I'm on board with everybody saying here, but it is going to come as quite a shock because this really did come out of left field to a lot of people, well, to anyone that hasn't really opened up our council packages and read it, which you can say next to nobody. But we, especially when it comes to Savaray, we already have the winter parking bylaw in effect. Like that will take effect is November 15th. So is there a possibility then to educate
Over the winter.
over the winter? Because right now, we're a month away from that taking effect anyways. Giving them an entire, 4 or 5 month, we could be passing this in November after the winter parking bylaw goes into effect. Then they have, you have 6 months to plan accordingly, or 4 or 5 months, whatever it is, to plan accordingly, as opposed to you're going to start getting warnings before even the winter parking goes into effect. I think there's an opportunity that presents itself because of the timing of this right now, where we have a little bit of potentially some flexibility there.
Good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would even make it even a touch stronger. I would say, send out a letter of intent to the residents saying that, in the spring, we are intending to put up no parking signs on this street here, here, and here. And then it won't be a surprise when in the spring we do that.
But can we not look at putting our signs up past November 15th? They can't park there anyways. So could we not put up the fence and educate between now and April 1st? Or
Compliance, the winter parking compliance is getting a little bit more difficult as well, so you're gonna see more enforcement this winter. It is getting more and more difficult at certain times.
But is the winter is it both sides?
Yes.
So if it is both sides, our signs pass, like on November 15th, the signs can go up. They can't, due to our bylaw for winter maintenance. And it gives us time to educate over the winter, and by spring, they're going to be well aware that we're not
Through the
cutting
chair,
it down.
strategically, you could put the signs up starting November 15th. Absolutely, we could.
And then
Until the
there.
signs are up,
Yeah.
it's not enforceable, so. We just strategically don't put them up until November 15th.
That's, I think, a good way of addressing it, and it gives time for the people. The winter is already in
I don't know
place.
if you can install them in November, you can install them, yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm good with that. So the motion's on the table. All in favor?
I think.
You think?
All of the report, yeah, I'm a little confused, yeah.
All of it.
As a resident of on George Street, many times I can't get in my driveway because there's 2 cars parked on each side, especially the townhouse been given, right, as soon as they get company over, well, they're parked on each side, and then they got the double side. There's some days I can't even get into my own anyway.
Which I understand, yeah, but it's the same thing as Moose Creek. It'll be come the 15th, which is a month. So a month from today, the signs will be going up. They can't park there because of snow, and in the spring, they still won't be able to park there, but the education portion would be.
For us, it's the opposite, it goes on the south side and not the north side. On our street, in the wintertime, there's no parking at all.
There's no parking anywhere.
On George Street, there's no parking at all in the winter. Starting November 15th, right up to spring, there's no parking at all. And come spring, the no parking will be on the south side, where the townhomes are, and in front on the north side, the parking will be happening.
Allowed,
So
yeah.
we put the signs up, there's no parking on the street at all, starting November 15th.
Again, I would still prefer to send out the letter ahead of time rather than putting the signs right up. I agree, and I understand what the issue is. I think what's practically going to happen is the people who are parking on the south side are now going to park on the north side, and that's going to fill up super fast. So the problem's still going to be there. People need to park on that street at times to visit or to live or whatever. Like I say, if we could send out a letter in advance that says, our intent is for these reasons, blah, 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 blah. Our intent is to, in the spring, to make these make these, then we can give the public a chance to voice their opinion before the signs go up, so they don't feel like, oh, they've made the decision. They can, if they have a creative idea we haven't thought of, then that's fine. Like I said, that's my opinion. Again, everybody else may want to pull the trigger on this right away. I would.
My
rather
only
send it
thought
out.
is, as Craig mentioned, school buses, first responders, fire, there's a lot that comes into play, not just.
I mean, the one challenge is dimensionally, these streets are not going to change. So you're still going to have this problem, whether we ask for public input, and I respect the deputy mayor's point, but realistically, the dimensions are still the dimensions, and we still have those restrictions if there are people parked on these streets. I can understand the frustration of the community. I certainly live on a street where one side is parking, one side is not, and there are times on the weekend where you cannot find a parking space on the street. And that's
Yeah, and
unfortunate,
that's
but that's because of the density of certain residential neighborhoods.
I'm still in line to putting them up by November 15 because it doesn't change whether they're up or not. They can't park there for the whole winter. And come spring, that'll give them lots of time to address council, or to address members of council. You'll hear from it, I'm sure, if they need to voice their opinion, so.
Through the chair, I think this is a very good compromise, but I don't know if we need to overcomplicate it to that degree, because again, until we put those signs up, this cannot be enforced. If council indicates that they're passing it tonight, we will give direction to the Public Works team to not start installing them until November 15th, and we've solved our problem.
And the enforcement is for snow or fire. It's there, the opportunity's there to make them aware that they cannot park throughout the winter season. And it's not just on a snow event, that's all the time. So nothing's changing. They're not able to park there. The signs will be, to me, can be going up, and it's only gonna follow through the enforcement in the spring for the fact that the road's too narrow and we don't want parking there at any time.
I believe, through the chair, I believe we can leave the motion as is. We're just not going to install them until November 1st or after.
We may not get a consensus on this one, which is fine. We'll just call the vote.
Anyway, let's bring it, it's on the table, so the motion's been read. All in favor of the motion? So motion, and I'm gonna vote in favor, so the motion is carried to, or sorry, I should ask, who's against? So we're not asking for a recorded vote, but it is carried, so. Thank you very much. So let's try to roll. I'm gonna have some apologies to make. Can I put this one right out, right, with regards to water meter capital budget request, item 9.6? I'll have Mr. Clerk to read the motion, and then I believe I'd like to just defer.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Bajelli, that the Council of the Township of North Stormont receive report PW 16, 2025, and direct staff to include funding for water meter implementation in the 2026 capital budget for consideration.
Thank you. So again, as mentioned, I would like to just bring in more, so this is not something that I'm right away stating that we want to bring into our budget process. We still have the October and first meeting of November to allocate, so let's defer and maybe give direction to, for the administration, just that there's more to have to come for us to make a decision. I'll get Blake and then Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Dinch.
Just to give you a heads up, I am enrolled in the East Ontario Waterworks Association conference held in Cornwall tomorrow and Thursday. I might do two part days. So if it, and this is a fairly large conference, basically just waterworks, sewers, valves, the whole bit. And it's actually for water meters, there's a big representation there of different companies. So if you have any questions or whatever, you can just give me a text, a phone call, and
Also, if we could look for RFQ, we would not sole source it to one, so seeing who's available out there to quote. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, to me, this is all about building an appropriate business case. There's a lot of assumptions, and we saw the assumptions played out in the presentation that we had in the delegation. But it's about making sure that we can afford what we have. I'm fine with having water meters, but I don't want to pay $800,000 and maybe have a 2% water reduction, which is actually turns out to be $100,000 water reduction because we just put the cost of burden on top of them when they're not getting any value for that. So I think what we need to see is, first of all, and I've done a little bit of research, I've mentioned this before, we are on average, our average usage based on the high-level numbers that come out of the water reports we receive, we're right on average with our sister municipalities, most of which have meters already. So I don't know that we're going to reduce water. If you have evidence that says that otherwise, I'd love to see it, because then I could say, yep, we could reduce that. Second of all, we'll have to figure out a tiering structure that will pay. So maybe we're going to have to ask some people, like commercial users, to pay a little bit more, so that we can ask very low users, one-bedroom units or whatever, to have a lower tier. Are we talking about 3 tiers, 2 tiers, a residential tier and a commercial tier, or 2 residential tiers, depending on whether, and how you balance out what the cost is going to be on those is going to decide whether or not we're going to lose money or make money or break even. So what I guess I'm asking for is more homework to be done, so that when we come back with this, we're not just signing up to put metering in regardless of whether we make money or lose money. I want to be sure that we have a good view of how we're going to do from a revenue perspective, to make sure that we're not just putting an added cost burden on top of the user base.
To your first question was, can you give me the facts so I can answer the facts that you were required to? You look at the average, and so I got to know where you're getting the numbers and how you're getting the numbers, because it's well known. Like, I talk to other municipalities, it's well known how much you're going to save, and through the mayor, the CEO and I had to do a lot of convincing to get that third contractor to buy land in Chrysler, because we don't have the volume of water that they need to produce their houses. So, he reached out to you?
Show us the data on it.
No,
So
but
with
I'm just saying that there's a lot of information out there. I can get you all the information, but if you have information that I'm trying to defend, I'd like to see what kind of numbers you're coming with what is happening.
Which that we can look into, but my thing is I'm guaranteed the consumption is like everything else. If you're in a rental unit and I'm paying hydro, you don't really worry about anything, whether it's going to be the same with water consumption. My worry is when I spoke to our previous member of council at the time, and I said to him, we did have water meters, why did we remove them? The reasoning was we didn't have a fixed amount, so we were going to be losing money. They wanted, let's remove the meters, just put a fixed price, we know exactly what's coming in. So this is where, through finance, we have to establish a fixed rate for commercial, a fixed rate. So what we did was did not serve all of our residents, because some big users were laughing, some very small users were crying. So it was not a good balance. And I think if you look around other municipalities, there is a balance of fixed rate for different density. And that's how you can come up with maintaining that amount of money, you lowering your consumption, and we're not going to go backwards. So we have to have where it's going to cover our expenses and move forward. So.
Through the chair, I think what we're saying is it's a complementary feature of a broader water program.
Correct. So with that said, the motion as it reads, I'll ask if anybody's in favor, which I'm doing right now. So all in favor of the motion? Seeing none, are we looking at deferring on this one as well? So the motion is deferred. Thank you very much, Council. And I think there's more discussions that will be had. So I think with Craig in regards, so any member of council, there was good questions Steve brought up with, there's many more to come. So if you're thinking outside the box, reach out to Craig, because this is, and Blake, if you are there, again, there's great value of being there, listening in onto those conversations. So,
So you would welcome us to send our questions or thoughts to the CAO?
yes.
Okay, great.
So this way anymore, and if we can build on that aspect of the direction we want to take. So, okay, so that's moving on to our, there's no municipal bylaws, our correspondence, so item 11.1 to 11.11. Mr. Clerk.
There is one ahead of that, a resolution ahead of that,
That is for,
one of the correspondence items.
that was it brought forward?
It would be the resolution to do with the CUPW regarding the Canada Post mandate, to go forward or not to.
And what item was it? Because I don't. So it's not in the agenda.
Okay. My
So
apologies for that.
We'll have to bring it forward under next meetings. Perfect. So with regards to item 11,
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham. Be it resolved that the correspondence listed as items 11.1 to 11.11 on the agenda be received.
any discussions or comments to bring forward? Seeing none, all in favor of our correspondence? Motion is carried. And we are in regards to the new business, item 15.1, in regards to the 25th Annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day on October 21st, 2025.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Whereas years of research confirms the benefits of high-quality early learning and childcare for young children's intellectual, emotional, social, and physical development and later life outcomes, and whereas childcare promotes the well-being of children and responds to the needs of families and the broader community by supporting quality of life so that citizens can fully participate in and contribute to the economic and social life of their community, and whereas trained and knowledgeable registered early childhood educators are the key to quality in early years and childcare programs, in licensed childcare, early on programs, child life programs, and full-day kindergarten. Whereas registered early childhood educators and childcare workers will be vital to the success of the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. Therefore, be it resolved that October 21st, 2025 be designated the 25th Annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in recognition of the education, dedication, and commitment of child care workers to children, their families, and the quality of life of the community.
Thank you. So with that said, all in favor of the motion? Or any questions? Sorry, I'll get through that. I apologize.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wondered whether or not, I think it's a great motion, and thank you to whoever thought to add that. It's a great idea. I'm just wondering, given the fact that we have a daycare here, is there anything we can do as a council to recognize them on the 21st?
Through the chair, I can reach out to our contact at Happy Face to determine if there's a, maybe a presentation, or if we can provide them with something official, just to recognize their staff and all the great work they do with our children, or the children that are being taken care of.
If you want, well, I'm in often discussion with the deputy mayor, we can maybe collaborate and come up with something just to recognize and acknowledge their presence, the fact that they're in our building. So good. So with that said, motion, all in favor? Sorry. Motion is carried. Scheduling of meetings, so we don't have, so that would be, it's not on there. Our next meeting would be October 28th, if I'm
That's
correct
correct.
on that. 2025, again at 6 o'clock. in regards to our coming events. I will not go through, so if you go online, each rec group do have their events that do take place in each of our communities. Please go and have a look. And now we will move into our closed session. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Is there any closing remarks from members of council? Seeing none, so moving into our closed session. Mr. Clerk.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dencham. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn to a closed session for the following reasons. A municipal or local board meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject of the meeting falls within one of 14 exceptions set out in Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, labor relations or employee negotiations, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege.
Thank you. So I guess we're good to go. Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried.